Mike Mayock joining us now. Mike, how are you, bud?
Welcome, friends.
No. You didn't win the driver, Mike.
I gave it a shot.
All right, you stirred it up yesterday, and what I like is when we see mock drafts, I don't want to know what you think the team will do. I want to know how you assess that talent. You said you got Marcus Mariota over Jameis Winston. When did you come to that conclusion, and why?
Well, when I first started watching the tape of Winston, one thing bothered me an awful lot, and that was ball security. And this year he threw 18 interceptions, and I put an interception reel together. And as a matter of fact, Kurt Warner and I watched it before his pro day sitting on the sidelines at Florida State. And I showed it to Kurt, and we went through all 18 picks. And what bothered me more than anything was he played on the team with arguably the best talent in the entire country, yet kept putting the ball in other people's hands and really putting his team at a disadvantage. And obviously he did a great job in the second half. He was at his best when his best was needed. But in the NFL, you don't get those redos. So I've got one issue on the field, which is bad interceptions. And then I don't know if you can trust them off the field. And the flip of that is the more tape I watched of Mariota, the more I realize that in their version of the spread offense, he makes more decisions with combination routes than people believe. He wins games and he takes care of the football. So if I'm a GM and I got to make that decision between the two of them, and I'm fairly conservative by nature, I'm going with the Oregon kid.
Why will Tampa go with Jameis Winston?
I think Jameis Winston's a more natural thrower. He's a great leader. I think that's the easier call to make if you get comfortable with the kid off the field.
Who has more the potential to be a bust between Mariota and Winston?
The way the scouts would put it is I think Winston has more of a higher ceiling, and I think Mariota has a higher floor. How do you like that?
What do you think? Who do you think has the more potential to be a bust?
Well, I think Winston does. And I mean, that's why when I say I'm conservative and I want to take care of the football and I'm worried about off the field, what I'm really telling you is I think Winston is got the potential to be a boom or bust guy, where if you draft Mariota, I think you know what you're getting. You've got a little bit of a time frame where he's going to have to work to get better with an NFL-style offense. But I think more and more coaches are willing to help these young quarterbacks and spread offenses get more comfortable and put them in a system similar to what they did in college.
How do you research desire, work ethic, your teammates like you? How do teams do that?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, teams do everything. They talk to everybody in the world. They give them all these crazy psychological evaluation tests and intelligence tests. They talk to the secretaries and the ball boys and the equipment managers. I mean, they talk to everybody. And let's face it, they still hit 50-50 on first-round quarterbacks. It's kind of scary. So I think it's the hardest position to evaluate because the intrinsic part of the human being's most important is how, is he a leader? How important is it? Is he the first guy in the locker room every morning? Do his teammates respect him? Those things are huge.
He's Mike Mayock, the NFL Network analyst, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Who's the third best quarterback?
For me, it's the kid out of Baylor, Bryce Petty, and we had this conversation on Path to the Draft last week, as a matter of fact, about, okay, after the first two, where does it go? And, Dan, he's so far, so raw for where he has to go to in the NFL, but he's got really nice arm talent, and he's got starter traits. So I've got him at number 3.
And what's amazing, though, Mike, when you look at the numbers these kids put up in college football, that's why my knock on Winston is, because people say, oh, you don't like him. No, I think he's ready to play in the NFL now, but I do have concerns. It's hard for a marquee quarterback to throw 18 interceptions. And here you have Bryce, who played in that offense and put up big numbers, but you're saying he's probably not ready to be a starter in the NFL anytime soon.
What they're asking Winston to do in his offense versus Petty in his offense are night and day.
Yeah.
So, but again, I keep getting back to you got the best team in the country surrounding you. Why did you keep putting your team at a disadvantage by throwing the football away? It was that interception reel was horrific.
The player you're falling in love with?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Phillip Dorsett from Miami, only about 5'9.5", 185 pounds. He ran 4.33 at the combine and came to his pro day the other day. He ran the 40 again, and this time in 4.25. He did everything they wanted him to do. He's tough. He's smart. He can play special teams. And another guy that's really rising up boards is Nelson Aguilar, the wide receiver from USC, and he's got really great return value in the punt return game. So he could be a surprise first-round pick.
Amari Cooper and Kevin White. What's the biggest difference between those two?
I'm going to go back to the floor and the ceiling, which you really like so much, obviously. And I think Kevin White has more upside. He's bigger, he's faster, but he's not as sure a deal as Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper reminds me of a Torrey Holt. He's polished. He gets in and out of his breaks. He catches everything. He's explosive. So I think Amari Cooper is a little bit safer, but I think Kevin White's got more upside.
Running backs, will there be a run on running backs, or are we still looking at them as hands-off during the first round?
I think Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley are first-round picks in any draft. And Gurley obviously has some medical, but if the medical checks out, I think they both go in the first round. And then it's a really deep running back draft. I think Amir Abdullah from Nebraska, Duke Johnson from Miami, Tevin Coleman from Indiana are my next three. But there's a couple other guys out there like Jay Ajayi from Boise and T.J. Yeldon from Alabama who could go ahead. Either one of them could be the third pick of the running back.
Didn't Coleman play with a broken bone in his foot?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he played, and he's one of the most explosive backs in this draft. And it was painful, but he played through it, and his pro day got moved back till April 15th, so he hasn't even run yet for the Scouts.
I love Leonard Williams at USC, but is he a sure thing?
How about you with an eye for a talent? Huh, Dan? He's the number one guy on most people's boards, and he reminds me a little bit, and I don't want to overdo this, but what he can do reminds a little bit of Seymour when he came out and New England took him number 6 overall and J.J. Watt. And the reason I use those two guys, Richard Seymour and J.J. Watt, is they're both 5 techniques, which is a defensive end and a 3-4, but they could play up and down the line of scrimmage in any scheme. And that's what this kid is. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's an offensive coordinator's dream because you can line him up anywhere and he can pressure the quarterback.
I love his hands.
Well, he loves yours.
Well, he should. He
spoke very highly of you.
Yeah. No, I every time I'd watch him play, I'd go, damn, they got 3 guys on him. It didn't matter. Like he reminded me of King Kong on the Empire State Building, and he just swatting planes away when he was there.
Yeah, he's got heavy hands and an ability to disengage off blocks, and again, because of his length and his size, he can play up and down the line, and he's a mismatch.
Good to talk to you. I know you got a busy schedule. Thanks for joining us, and have fun there in the cave at NFL Films.
I appreciate it, pal. Thanks.
Thank
Dan.
you, Mike. That's Mike Mayock, NFL Network.